So NBA 2K21 My Team. What is the first thing that you think of when you think of NBA 2K21 My Team? Do you think of fun? Do you think of pain? Do you think of spending too much money? Do you think of unfulfilled promises? What is it that you think of when somebody says the term or phrase or game or title, whatever, NBA 2K21 My Team? Well, I feel like a lot of us started off the year with a lot of hope. And that is the reason why I decided to make this documentary series. So, if you're new to the channel, welcome. It is your boy CheapLudez, or in this case, Professor Ludez, professor of all things My Team, with a PhD in purchasing VC. And I'm here to give you a detail-oriented history of the game mode that we all know and love. So, with that being said, let's get started with Chapter 1. Pre-release hype. Now, I'm not really entirely sure if the hype was due to 2K20 just being a very overall meh game in the series, similar to 2K18. People look back on it with rose-colored glasses now, but people did not like 2K20 when it came out. So, while 2K20 was still going, unlike this year, we actually got the demo for 2K21 showing off the new shot stick. Now, nobody really knew how this was going to be implemented, or more accurately, if it was going to be worth using at this point. You know, people were trying to get used to it, but for the most part, people were just kind of playing this game just to not play 2K20. Vast majority of the player base was still pretty stuck on using the button, myself included. I didn't really think anything of the shot stick. I mean, I'll be honest, hitting greens with it was super rewarding, as you can see. Like, it's fun. It's definitely a shift from the typical 2K gameplay that we've been used to up to this point. So I do want to give them at least some props for trying to implement this shot stick, because I think if it was implemented properly, which you'll find out was not the case at all, like 0% was it implemented properly. But if it was implemented properly, which I'm hoping maybe they would do this year, but I guess that's not going to be the case, it could have been a very good idea. And I'll be honest, most people milked this demo, especially content creators, till the absolute death of it. Like, I saw so many videos that just had this demo in it for no reason whatsoever. 2K20 was still kicking by this point. Then we actually got our dev blog, and our dev blog, I'll be honest, I mean, it didn't excite a lot of people. I personally was super excited, especially when they started to talk about the new implementation of a season system. I thought that was going to be great. Now, I'll be honest, I'm still shocked that 2K didn't monetize it more than they did, because I thought for sure we were getting some sort of like battle pass type system that was going to cost like $8 per season. And by the way, don't let 2K fool you. Part of the reason they put this season arc into the game, or the season feature into the game, was because in the not so distant future, loot box mechanics are not going to be a thing that we're going to see in a lot of video games, especially E-rated sports titles like a 2K. So them implementing this season feature was a variety of different benefits to them, one of which being the ability to charge you in the future for this when they can't really monetize packs in the way that they do right now. So that definitely has something to do with it. Now, a lot of the things talked about in this dev blog were at the time new and exciting, especially My Team Limited. People didn't really know exactly what My Team Limited was going to be. And I'll be honest, I think there's a lot of people that are unhappy with the result of My Team Limited. I will say right now that My Team Limited was the only positive, or at least one of the only positives from 2K21 My Team. That's how I feel. And I mean, I kind of had that idea when this dev blog came out. I think I have an old video up still where I'm talking about the dev blog. I mean, this is where I got the actual footage from this. And I was pretty positive on My Team Limited. There were also was like talks of a new vault, which didn't really happen. I mean, they made references that the vault would be new, and I think the vault opened a little bit different, but there really wasn't anything new about the, I don't know, like vault itself. Like it opened less. I can say that with utmost certainty. It definitely opened less than it normally did last year. But regardless of my or anyone else's thoughts on NBA 2K21 My Team's dev blog, hype itself was at an all-time high. I've been around for a lot of 2K releases, and I genuinely feel like this is the most hyped people were for a 2K release in a long time, at least. The last time I remember people being this hyped was maybe 2K13. That's the last time I can remember it anyway. And I mean, that felt good, but I think a lot of that, like I said, had to do with the fact that 2K20 itself was just a very lackluster experience for a lot of people. So, my whole point is basically that majority of the player base was going into 2K21 with the utmost hope. Just the absolute highest hopes for 2K, which is never realistically a good idea. And it wasn't a good idea then either, but we all took it in stride, you know? We all thought this was going to be an amazing experience. Which, was it? I don't know. You'll have to tune into this documentary and the rest of them. In this dev blog, they did reference a bounty of content. They said there was going to be more content this year than there was in the previous years. They did say something about that, specifically highlighting like Triple Threat and Triple Threat Online. And I do just want to say, they were correct. They did end up putting cards into those modes that were significantly better than anything we had seen previously. That is not an overstatement by 2K. The prizes themselves, aside from the unlimited ones, were great, and you're obviously going to hear about some. So sit back and relax. Roll something up. Let's begin the documentary for sure. I'm excited. Are you? Season 1 began, and the launch day. If you were like me, you set your console to New Zealand time and played it about 12 hours early. I know a lot of people didn't do that. I personally did. But logging onto the game for the first time, you really got a sense of, okay, this is a much different experience than 2K20. Everything looked different. The new season system, it felt fresh. It gave you kind of a renewed sense of like purpose when you were playing this game. I know that sounds strange, but anyone who's played 2K21 My Team all year long could tell you that, like, without the seasons mechanic, a vast majority of the player base would have stopped playing this game a long time ago. And that's not an overstatement to say that. The season mechanic keeps people engaged. It always has, ever since its inception in Season 1. But Season 1, right off the bat, was looking good. We were all excited. You know, we hadn't played the actual game yet for the most part. Most of us hadn't anyway. But we were all really excited because even at this point, all I had done was play offline. And I was finding it rather challenging, but that's usually how it goes on launch day in 2K. You know, it takes a while to find the exploits. The prizes for the agenda were really solid. I was personally excited about Antoine Walker out of the gate. I ended up not being that excited about Antoine Walker because he was really not that tight, but some of these packs were really cool. Obviously, we saw that badge editions were back before this, but this is when we saw how we were going to actually earn the badges in general, finding it through pack drops and getting a lot of them through the agenda. And Steph Curry himself was available. Not available the first day, but we saw Steph Curry. And I'll be honest, a lot of people didn't really think anything of Steph Curry, and neither did I. I personally didn't even think about grinding for him. I was like, dude, this seems like way too much work. Just looking at, like, look at the challenges, man. This is Season 1. This is probably the hardest card that we had all year long as far as grinding for. I mean, most of these challenges are like 150, 200, 300 XP tops. I mean, now we're getting challenges that are 1,000, and it's still difficult. So think about that in regards to Steph Curry. Like, the people who went out and got Steph Curry, like, salute to you, because that's some dedication that I just don't have that. But I definitely appreciate it for sure. Like, I could see. But player base, a lot of hope. We had league packs. I really hope most people didn't open these, but I mean, majority of people at this point were just running like 21 current guys. So like current Steph Curry, current Durant. There's people, those cards were going for like 100K at the beginning of the game. Look, if there's one thing you can take away from this documentary, please take away, never buy the current series cards on launch day. Literally, never, ever do it. The best card at this stage was Sapphire Ben Simmons and the starter Shaquille O'Neal, which I will get into in a little bit. Those were the absolute best cards that you could possibly use in this game at this point. And obviously I'll talk about season tip-off and those cards as well. But those cards were incredible. Literally one of the best power forwards, if not the best power forward, and literally the best center in the game besides one other one that I'll talk about. Because you literally couldn't shoot in this game. But we got our new Dominations. We saw that there was going to be more than 3 Dominations, which was really tight. Domination was incredibly difficult. Current Domination wasn't so bad, but once you got to Historic and All-Time, it became incredibly difficult. And honestly, you just couldn't shoot in this game right off the bat. Like, right off the bat. But most people, or veterans of 2K, don't really get too spooked by stuff like that because, honestly, once you've had this happen to you for 2K, you just expect it for the most part. But I will give 2K credit because there was a wealth of content available almost immediately, which I think was awesome. You could get a Hoff badge for that Damian Lillard, like literally within the first 5 minutes of playing. That was super sick. Now I'm going to go into the actual cards themselves that were available on day 1 or launch day and talk about some of those guys individually. Now we also got our first look at like Triple Threat and Unlimited. And Unlimited, the new Triple Threat remained basically unchanged, which was a good thing for the most part. I mean, the gameplay were in Triple Threat this year, but the actual mode of Triple Threat remained unchanged for the most part. Yeah, it looked a little different stylistically, but overall, at its core, same experience. Unlimited, on the other hand, had gone completely sideways. It had undergone like a massive overtaking. Instead of the traditional 12-0 that we've had for the past 2 years before that, we ended up getting 12-0 plus an additional like 50 games with tiers, and the prizes never ended up being worth it. I really hope we see a different change next year, but we'll see. Something a little bit better. This one is so bad that people are literally pining for 12-0 to come back. And then we saw My Team Limited for the first time. I'll be honest, not a lot of people understood how this worked immediately. Ralph Sampson himself wasn't that good of a card, but in the right hands, he was pretty usable. People didn't really understand how this worked. A lot of people thought that if you got all 6 rings, you would get Ralph Sampson plus all of the prizes, which is absolutely not what happened. But it probably should have been. But people were generally psyched about everything. I don't think there was any part of this game that people were pessimistic about, at least on that first day. You know what I mean? The more will come. So, our first batch of content, we obviously got all the current series cards that I was talking about earlier. And, not gonna lie, not really stoked on any of the current cards. For that first weekend, Ben Simmons was literally the best card in the game, if not one of the best cards in the game. Looking at some of the other guys, we got the season tip-off packs. I mean, they were okay. Like Wally Zerbiak and Vlade Divac, if the right patches had been put into place, would have been awesome that first weekend, but the way they stood, they weren't very good. Kristaps was pretty good. A lot of people ran him. I think I ran Kristaps. I think he was my center for a little while at least, or my power forward. I can't remember. None of these TTO reward cards were very good, like Jamario Moon or anything like that. Vernon Maxwell would become incredibly good, but I think I'm a little bit higher on Vernon Maxwell than a lot of people are. But that card would eventually become pretty solid, and I'll get into why he would become solid once we figure more things out. Now, like I said, if the right patches were in place, Brian Russell would have been incredible as well. It's just, he got unlucky. You know what I mean? None of these guys were really that good. Tom Sanders was like a really annoying defensive card, though. I will say that. I mean, the Emerald guys like Klay and Myers Leonard were probably 2 of the best cards in the game at this stage. Klay wasn't really that good because he couldn't shoot. Henry Bibby was actually super sick. I just wanted to like point him out. Bobby Jackson was like the offline god. He was super tight. Not too many of these reward cards were great. This Shaq was a monster, though. You could always tell if you were running into a sweat because most people had this Shaq, or at least most like comp level sweat guys, had him completely evoed within the first like 2 days. And if you ran into this dude online, you know you were going to have a rough time. Some people did use like AI and some of the other guys, but Shaq was the one. Also, would like to shout out starter Damian Lillard. Starting Damian Lillard was really good. Jamal Wilkes and Mo Cheeks were really good defensive cards. In my mind, Rick Smits is the best big man in this game. A lot of people said Gus Williams was the best card in this game, period, because of his speed. I don't believe that to be true. I personally think Derrick Rose is the best card. There was also these Mamba cards, which I'll be honest, I don't think I ever ran into any of these cards the entire year. Some of the diamonds later, but that's about it. The Ruby rewards should have been tight. Like I said, if the right patches were in place, guys like Keith Van Horn, Kerry Kittles would have been incredibly good, but unfortunately, their time passed them by the time they would have been usable. Now, here's where we get into the overpowered cards. Derrick Rose. This dude, this card. First off, you could not contest dunks, right? Contesting dunks was broken, fundamentally broken. And that first weekend, when it was basically rim running simulator and nobody could shoot, Derrick Rose was pretty good. He really became good when people were able to shoot, because then nobody was stopping him as soon as people started 5-outing. James Silas was actually really good. We saw our first exchange cards, and the exchange prices were ridiculous. I think you had to have like 2 diamonds just to exchange for Bob Cousy at this stage, and that was like $200K in and of itself, if not more. Right? None of these Amethyst guys were good. Shout out to World Be Free. World Be Free was actually pretty tight. Also, shout out to Kelly Tripucka. We never got secondary versions of these cards. Most people were running guys like James Harden, Kevin Durant, Steph, AD, LeBron, but these 2 cards would become the most unstoppable cards in my team. Like, the history of 2K21 my team, there aren't 2 cards that are more unstoppable than Allen Houston and Mitch Richmond. Yes, I'm talking about Bull, Pink Diamond Bull, Invincible Bull, whatever overpowered card you can think of, none of them are as powerful or as unstoppable as Mitch Richmond and Allen Houston. These diamond guys were pretty good, I guess. Bob Lanier, if you were able to get him off the Ascension board early enough, was one of the better centers in the game. I think he was my center for a while. I want to say he was my center until Moses Malone came out. He was good. If you grinded and got Baylor and Mike in, like, those guys were incredibly good. Steph Curry, I regret not grinding for him because of how good he was, but we would end up getting another version of him later. Paul Pierce, if you put in the time and unlimited, he was like one of the best wings. But these free agent cards, my God. All right, every year when the game comes out, people abuse the free agent cards online. This Derrick Rose specifically, one of the most annoying cards I've had to face this entire year. Playing Triple Threat Online was pointless because people would literally just use 3 free agent cards or a free agent cards and Shaq. And there's just no way you were going to beat them because this dude had like 16 Hoff badges and like 97 speed and nobody could stay in front of him. This Zion, super special shout out to him too. He was super annoying. He had that base 29. People kind of figured out how good Zion was early once the shooting patch came in. All of these free agent cards are like infuriating. Shooting. Now look, I'm using Wally Zerbiak here, right? Not the most tip-top best shooter in the world, but a very competent shooter with great shooting badges. And I'm trying to use the shot stick. And honestly, the shot stick's not so bad at this point. It is a little frustrating to use, but that's just because nobody really knew how to use it at this point. It's not one of those things where it was bad in implementation alone, but the game itself, you couldn't make whites. And when I say that, it's basically what they intended to do with Next Gen. So if you go and play 2K21 Next Gen right now, what you're experiencing on Next Gen is essentially the same as what they wanted to do with 2K21 from the jump. The problem was they didn't increase the green window size like they do on Next Gen, and they also didn't make it slightly easier to make whites. That's essentially what they did on Next Gen. Now, unfortunately, the community itself was very divided on the gameplay and shooting mechanics of NBA 2K21 My Team. There was essentially 2 prevailing schools of thought. It was either A, this game sucks, and they need to fix this ASAP, or B, I'm a sweat, I'm super tight, you just need to get good, you suck. Skill gap, skill gap, skill gap. Those are pretty much the only 2 things you ever heard from people, especially content creators around this time. You know, there was a group of content creators that said this game needs to be fixed, this is terrible, and a group that was very vocally talking about skill gap. And I'll be honest, the skill gap people are mostly over on Park. I think it was a combination of both. That's my personal opinion on it. just trying to play triple threat online was horrendous. Like, literally horrendous. A good example is the cards that I'm using right now are 3 of the best shooting cards in the game at this point, right? Like, the badges that you say, like, nobody should be syncing off Allen Houston like this. Like, this is where the state of the game was at this point. This man is using the sweatiest possible team as well. Like, don't get it twisted. He's running Shaq. He is running Ben Simmons, and I think he's literally running Gus Williams. I just don't remember who his point guard was. But I don't even know who he was using. Either way, like, look at this. This is horrendous gameplay that we're dealing with right now. This is not skill gap. Now, like I said, I think it's a combination of two, like, of the two. Like, Rashard Lewis, okay, it's a white. Slightly late, he missed it, whatever. And then this man is just gonna post, and, yep, literally, just post, drive, kick out, boom. Every single time. Like, that is what your average game of Triple Threat Online was at this point in the game. And this is weekend number 1. This is day 1, I think I recorded this video. Literally. So like I said, I think it's a combination of the two. Had they just left the game alone and people gotten used to it and it been more green or you don't make it gameplay, I think people would have gotten used to it. But I think really all they had to do at this time was do what they did to 2K21 Next Gen. Increase the green window a little bit, up the white percentage just a tiny bit, so occasionally they went in. And that's it. And then you have Next Gen. But at this point, they made it so basically no whites went in whatsoever. And you had to green every single shot. And I'll be honest, that was not good for anyone. Like, that didn't work. People were not happy. People were not happy at all. I believe there was a hashtag. I don't remember if it was around this time, if it was later on. I think it was later on when Next Gen released. But it was like a make 2K21 fun again. And that was like number 4 on trending on Twitter. So that should give you an indication about how people felt about this game. And I remember this game at the time on Twitter was blowing up because people were literally just showing videos of them just playing this game where they couldn't shoot. But then it happened. We got the shooting patch on Monday. The Monday after the game releases, we get a shooting patch. They don't really say anything about the shooting patch. It doesn't take people very long to figure out that you are now able to green shots at an incredibly high clip. And pretty much every single white you shoot, if it's on the move, goes in. I don't know what they did exactly, but Allen Houston quickly became he went from being an irrelevant card to, bar none, hands down, one of the most unstoppable cards in my team history. Like, look at the things I'm doing with this card right now. Greens, doesn't matter. There are a lot of people who refer to themselves as, like, great stick shooters, but I don't want to burst anyone's bubble, but, like, we were all the greatest stick shooter. You know what I mean? Literally, it was that easy. Like, it was so easy to shoot with the stick. Standing still was tough. I'll say that. Like, standing still was kind of tough to shoot, but when you could just do this every possession and it would go in, who needs skill at that point? They said, oh, you guys said that there's skill gap. Let's just get rid of the skill gap completely. The people who figured out this first, my word. All it took was specific animations. That's the only issue. Specific animations and the 2 most important badges at this stage in the game, besides range extender, obviously, that's a pretty typical important badge, were difficult shots and flexible release. Those were the 2 most important badges in the game. If a card had either of those things combined with a good leaner, it was over. And guess what? Allen Houston and Mitch Richmond had all of those things. Literally, both of them had both the badges necessary. As you can see, Derrick Rose just raised up on me. Wait, is that Damian Lillard? That might be Damian Lillard. I don't even know. But, like, legitimately, every single possession, you could just go down and you could do this, and it would be cash. It didn't matter. Mitch Richmond came off the bench for me, and Allen Houston started, and I would just rotate. And then I think I had Vernon Maxwell, who also had the Athletic 2 leaner. So, literally, I could just fade away all day in people's face. Or I could pull up. It doesn't matter. Like, you didn't miss in this game if you were using the shot stick. Legit, you'd miss maybe like 1 out of 10. But if you could do this every possession, why would you not? I literally just hit these all day. Then we got our first content the next day, or our first set of Tuesday content, I should say, the playoff stoppers packs. honestly, these were pretty bad. If patch 3 had been in place, Doug Christie probably would have been pretty good. And he wasn't a bad shooting guard or wing to begin with, but he definitely wasn't anything special. And these packs themselves were just not very good. Like Ben Wallace, I think gets a little bit more flack than he deserves. Like he was a pretty serviceable center at this point. It's just that he came out when people were shooting fadeaway threes from half court. You know what I mean? So Ben Wallace didn't really fit the game plan. Gary Payton, I locked in for him. I didn't like him because he didn't have the right jump shot animations to do those cheesy jump shots that I like doing, but Gary Payton himself was like a pretty decent card, I guess. He played good defense and stuff. I mean, that's about all you can really ask from Gary Payton. Then we got clutch packs on Friday. There was a lot of controversy with these off the rip because Kobe was supposed to have gold range extender and then they just decided to like take it off him for some reason. I don't really know what that's all about. Instead of giving him like non-upgradable silver range, which would have been like very acceptable at the time, like silver range this year was basically gold range last year, right? Or just allowing you to put range extender on him, they just said, nah, he gets no range extender and you can't upgrade his range extender. Same with flexible release. Two pretty important badges at that stage. I just don't understand why they wouldn't give him like bronze or silver range and then just make it non-upgradable, because we saw throughout the year they could easily give a card a badge and then just make it so you cannot upgrade it. They did that all the time. Also, he had gold steady. For what reason? I'm not entirely sure. Mario Ellie was pretty decent. Kawhi Leonard was a good defensive budget card. He wasn't really that much better than Brian Russell, though, if I'm being honest. Some people liked Kukoc. I don't know. I wasn't really a big fan of Kukoc personally, but it is what it is. Ray Allen was really good, and he was good for a while. And Ray Allen was the beginning of studying jump shots. And when I say that, I mean it was the beginning of people realizing, or at least myself realizing, that the arc of a jump shot has a lot to do with how many whites you make this year. Richard Hamilton, by the way, was sick, and I used him as my bench 2 guard for a while. Just want a special shout out that card, because Richard Hamilton never gets love in 2K, and I feel like this year he was really solid. Also, they gave him no defensive badges for some reason, and I just feel like that was offensive to Richard Hamilton. Kobe wasn't great. He was over 100K. Kareem was like 50K, and he was okay. Michael Jordan's Michael Jordan. He was over 100K, not very good. Jason Kidd was, due to the lack of cards, actually a pretty good point guard in this game. Jerry West was actually not that bad. I personally just didn't like him because he didn't have the right jump shot animations, but he was a pretty good shooter. If you knew what you were doing with him, he was pretty solid. He just really didn't play defense that well, but he did have 30 gold badges and 4 Hoffs. Pretty solid release. Like Jerry West release is good. 6'2" with a 6'9" wingspan. Just the worst possible picture they could have chose to. I don't know. But the thing is he didn't have the jump shot. That was the key. He didn't have the leaner. And I know we haven't talked about that since 2K19 really, because 2K20 really didn't do anything. But this is about the time where I started being like, okay, what is so special about Allen Houston that makes him have the ability to do the things that he does? That was kind of my whole thought process. I was trying to figure it out for a while. He had Ray Allen base, so Ray Allen base makes sense. That's why a lot of the whites that he shot were going in. But it really was the Athletic 2 leaner, I think, that allowed him to shoot those fadeaway 3-pointers, because a lot of cards in this game couldn't do that. Kendall Gill, Vernon Maxwell, a lot of the cards that could do that had the same leaner. So my thought process was it had to do with something like this, which obviously would make sense because it is a leaning jump shot. But Doug Christie also had this leaner, and he could not shoot those fadeaway shots. So still to this day, I really do not know what caused that specific jump shot animation, and I would love to figure it out. Next on Tuesday, we got back-to-back packs, and I'll be honest, I was super stoked about these packs because of Lamar Odom, because of how good he was in 2K20, and he was okay. Like, he was just okay. That's about all I can say about him. Kenny Smith was actually super sick. Like I feel like Kenny Smith doesn't get enough love. You know what I mean? I feel like out of all the cards that came out early, he gets the least amount of love. Bailey Howell was obviously the one everyone was super stoked on, though. Like, this was the card. Everyone was omega stoked on Bailey Howell. No question about it. Like, he was essentially a power forward, small forward T-Mac clone that could hold a majority of the shooting badges in the game. Of course, everyone was hyped on Bailey Howell. I, of course, was super hyped on Bailey Howell. Bailey Howell was tight. No question about it. Bailey Howell was sick. Now, I do think he gets a little overhyped, but at the time, I mean, without spending a bunch of MT, there really wasn't any big men that were as good as Bailey Howell was. And my badged up Bailey Howell carried me through so much. Lamar Odom was disappointing. Dennis Rodman was bad. Terrible lock-in. Isaiah Thomas. You know what you're getting when he comes out in 2K. That's it. Next up, we got the Dave Bing update on the 16th. Now, this isn't inherently important. He's like a mildly okay card. The reason this is important is because in addition to getting Dave Bing on this day, they also patched shooting. So they nerfed the shot stick. And no, they did not nerf it for the last time, but this was the first of 2 nerfs that were going to basically kill the shot stick, or in certain cases, make it completely overpowered. It just kind of depended what kind of person you were. So, what they did with the shot stick was they now give you the ability to use the shot aiming with no meter. I don't know why they did that, mainly because it was already kind of difficult to use with the meter, so I don't really know what the benefit of no meter was, but people pretty much, I would say almost immediately. I don't think it was very long before the word Zen started getting thrown around. It was maybe that same day. On Friday, we got Manu Ginobili in the Idols 1 pack, so it's our first packable pink diamond. This pack was really not that good, though. Kristaps was one of the better big men in the game at this point. He still wasn't incredibly good. He was my center for a bit, and I think he was better than everybody else at this game, because we saw the game kind of morph into what we know now as 2K21 around this time after this patch. So, guys like Kristaps, Paul George was good, obviously. Alonzo Mourning was actually a really good defensive center. Manu, I don't know what this Jason Tatum card was for. Honestly, I don't remember at all. Manu gets a lot of flack as well. I think he was a lot better than people said he was. People say, like, I've heard people talk about this card and say that he was terrible. He wasn't terrible. He was just overpriced. Like, that was it. This card wasn't that bad. It's because he had bad dribble moves. Like, that was it. But if you played a different style of 2K that didn't rely so heavily on dribble moves, like, or I should say specific dribble moves, this card was actually pretty decent. His jump shot wasn't terrible either. Like, Manu was pretty decent. He could get majority of the badges. He just couldn't get range extender, so everyone automatically thought he sucked because he didn't have range extender. People really didn't realize we didn't need range extender at this stage. Like, you didn't at all. Obviously, it was nice to have, but if you had a couple guys on your team who didn't have range, it wasn't the end of the world. Patty Mills was pretty tight too, by the way. Just want to shout out him. Tuesday, we got the Playoff Dimers set, and this is literally one of the best sets that we got in 2K21 period for its time, for sure. Doc Rivers was sick. Robert Reed and his luscious Jerry curl were super tight. Sleepy Floyd was the best point guard in the game, bar none, at this stage. No question about it. And he remained a top 5 point guard for at least a pretty relatively small amount of time, but decent for an Amethyst that came out the 3rd week of the game. Chris Webber was better than a lot of people gave him credit for. This card was one of the most unstoppable rim attacking big men. If you ran into this card around this time, you know how annoying he was. Because not only he could step out, he could hit it a little bit too. Like, if he was wide open in the corners, like, he'd hit the 3. But the thing is like, the speed with ball at 70 and 75 ball handle doesn't seem like a big deal. But for a big man at this point that dunked like Chris Webber did, it was wholly annoying. Steve Nash was okay, and obviously Draymond Green. I'm not going to talk about Draymond Green like he was some revolution to 2K. He was a really good power forward, and if you had him, especially if you had him badged up, you were definitely better off. Draymond Green's release was jump shot 12, I believe. It was really slow, but it was easy to green. He was no doubt he was the best power forward in the game, but I'm not going to sit here and say he's significantly better than a badged up Bailey Howell. Does that make sense? Or, yeah. I mean, he's okay. Also, Chris Webber had base 22 and made a bunch of whites, too. So I just wanted to throw that out there for the record. Then we got Swen Nader, which is like... This was kind of me thinking like, oh, okay, here's 2K on its 2K stuff. Like all the TT online and offline stuff we're going to get is just garbage at this point. Because Swen Nader was terrible, man. He was a good interior presence, but we had a million of those at this point. Nobody cared or wanted Swen Nader. Like at all. Nobody wanted him. Not one single person wanted this. At all. Who was actively wanting Swen Nader? His grandkids? Perhaps. He did have a sick mustache, though. I do want to call that out. Then on Friday, we got Flash 1. This set was stupid. This set was so good. Literally, this set was incredible. Damon Stoudemire by himself, he was a limited reward. Limited by this point was pretty normal. We had gotten used to it, and they kind of spiced it up by throwing Damon Stoudemire in here. And when he got fully evo'd, he was legitimately a top-tier point guard in this game. He would have been more hyped if John Stockton didn't come out literally the same day he dropped. But this Damon Stoudemire, Ray Allen base, good upper. Once he was fully evo'd out, he had like Silver Rain, Silver Deadeye, really fast at 5'10". And at this point, like smaller point guards, there really wasn't any big point guards at this point, but guys who were like 5'10", 6 foot, they were still usable. They were fast, they could get to the rim. Damon Stoudemire could do all of those things. He was sick. Scalabrine was meh. Was it pre-release or pre-order packs? I mean, cool. I didn't get a single one of those 2K21 Mamba cards. Then we had Boris Dio. Boris Dio could hold like every badge in the game. I believe he had, 4 badge upgrade slots. So you had to be a little strategic with it. Good jump shot, though. We found out base 40 was pretty good. Boris Dio played great. 6'8". There's nothing wrong with him. He was sick. He was a lot of people's big man for a while. Then this Durant was in here. I mean, he's Durant, so he's kind of like overpriced and overhyped a little bit regardless. I think I pulled this card. I used him for a while, but then I decided to sell him. I just preferred Bailey Howell, and I knew we were getting more Durants, which is always the case. But, I mean, Durant was still good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say he was like game-changing. Brandon Roy was pretty good. He was basically a worse version of the possessed T-Mac that we ended up getting. But John Stockton, first off, we got a glitch John Stockton, and nobody really knew what his glitch was going to be. And then we found out that he had like 94 speed and a 90 driving dunk. And we were like, okay, how is this going to go? Well, this card right here showed everyone the importance of showtime early on. Also, John Stockton's release was really solid when it came out. But this was the card that really showed everyone what showtime did. And man, not only could he shoot, he obviously could dunk and stuff too, but he played good defense and he had great steal animations. This card was ridiculous. And I'm over on Next Gen currently doing this, and like, he's still a pretty easy card to green with. This is right now, like I'm recording this particular like little snippet of gameplay right now in August of 2021 with this Diamond John Stockton with no badge upgrades, and he's still sick. Like, could you use him in a game of Unlimited against modern cards? No, absolutely not. But like, the fact that he can still like hit jump shots on normal timing, you know, that's in and of itself pretty good. This card was ridiculous at the time. If you didn't have John Stockton at this point, you were running Sleepy Floyd. But like, John Stockton was nasty with it. He could shoot, he could play defense, he could dunk, bar none, the best card in the game at this point. For sure. I don't think anyone would really argue with me at that. Like, he was the best card in the game. You could really tell how sweaty someone was if they had John Stockton. Because if they had John Stockton, it was about to get real and you were about to get dunked on. He was Derrick Rose, but he could shoot jumpers. That was the only thing wrong with that beginning of the year Derrick Rose card, was he couldn't shoot jumpers. But guess what? John Stockton was Derrick Rose with a jumper, and a nice one at that. And we'd see more like him. So, next up, we got our TTO update on the 28th. Now, this was incredibly important, and I definitely wanted to talk about it, because before this, that update with the whole shooting fadeaway three-pointers, yeah, that only worked for Unlimited for some reason. They just basically changed it for unlimited and allowed you to shoot. TTO was still a sweaty rim running wasteland. But then they implemented this, update or patch, and TTO for the most part has remained kind of unchanged since then. Basically nothing has changed with Triple Threat Online since this patch came out. So I think it was can't say. Then we got some more cards on Tuesday. We got the Playoff Underdog set, and also for limited, we got these two cards. We didn't really know what they were for at the time. They ended up being for limited. You got either LeBron or Jimmy Butler. Cool. Tyson Chandler was a pretty good defensive center, but Steven Jackson, I think, legitimately was the best card in this set. People were running badged up Steven Jacksons over like a lot of people. This card was really sick, and really a shame we only got one more Steven Jackson by the end of the year, because this card was loved by the community, and we only ended up getting another one for Triple Threat Spotlight Sims, which was kind of a pain. It would have been nice to see like a diamond Steven Jackson in like January, you know what I mean? Or a pink diamond or something. But no, alas. Jamal Mashburn was pretty good too. He was essentially like the prototype to Grant Hill, basically. He played pretty similar to how Grant Hill would play later on. Mashburn was tight. I did a couple gameplay videos with Mashburn. We didn't get another Mashburn card the entire year, which I think was the audacity of 2K. And then the rest of the cards were just meh. Latrell Sprewell was okay, but Mutombo and Irving were just overpriced. They weren't really that good. Friday, though, we got Idol's Dominique Wilkins, which, like, Dominique himself, I just want to start out by saying is pretty solid. Eric Gordon was an incredibly good budget card. For sure, like he was. There's nothing wrong with this card at all. Michael Cooper was a great 3-and-D guy. Willis Reed, for whatever reason, ended up being one of the best rebounding cards in the game at this point. If you were to come up against this Willis Reed card, I don't know what was going on, but he would just out-rebound, like, even guys like Rick Smits, not Giannis, but other cards. Kristaps specifically, because I remember this exact thing happening to me, and me being, like, very upset about it. Giannis was Giannis. He couldn't shoot, but he had an elite player build. But we got Darren Williams. And a line was kind of drawn in the sand at this point. If you were more of a three-point shooting player, Darren Williams was your guy. If you were more of a rim runner, you were going with John Stockton. Now, most people had just both of those two guys. I had both of them. I preferred Darren Williams because he had base 29. Or wait, did he have base 22? I don't remember exactly. I'll have to look that up. I just remember his jump shot was absolutely wet. I believe he had base 22. Darren Williams was one of the best shooting cards in this game. And honestly, like, it's kind of crazy that this card still can kind of hit jumpers like this. He was so ahead of his time. Like, he was so ahead of his time. This diamond Darren Williams card was so tight. Yeah, he had base 22. He made more whites than any card in this game, which is why I loved him so much, because I'm not the greenest shooter in the world. But Darren Williams is really when I started to pay attention to jump shot base, because I knew that Ray Allen hit a lot of whites even though he had steady shooter. But Darren Williams is when I was like, okay, why does this specific card hit more whites than anyone in the game? I don't understand it. He doesn't have steady, so maybe that has something to do with it. Well, then I had other cards that didn't have steady with similar shooting badges, and that wasn't the case. John Stockton missed a pretty decent amount of whites himself, and he had basically the same shooting badges. So I didn't really understand what it was, but it was the base 22. Then on Tuesday, we got playoff records. This is like the worst set. Like, literally, this is the worst set of Season 1. Maybe legitimately one of the worst sets of 2K21. This set was so poor. Not a single one of these cards was usable at this point. Like, literally. The only reason anybody opened these was to lock in for Dr. J, who I feel like there's some revisionist history going on. Yeah, he was 1.5 million MT for sure. And I'll be honest, he was definitely not worth the price. But, like, you're not going to sit here and tell me this card was trash. I've heard people say this card was overrated, not good. No, this card was a god. Like, literally a god at the time. Especially because around this time in 2K21 My Team, if you had a card that was fast and could dunk, you were almost unstoppable on offense. And Julius Erving could do that. And if you put some shooting badges on him, and he had at least a few gold shooting badges added to him, Oh, he was lethal. That Rudy base, incredible. Unfortunately, there was some hiccups. As I experienced, if you go to lock in for Julius Erving, you just got nothing, which was fun. So you literally just got like nothing. You locked in and then you just never received the card, period. Contacted 2K support. They basically told me that's not a thing that happens. And I was like, well, no, I have video. It's literally happening. And then I eventually got Julius Erving, but I actually had to wait a few hours before I even got him. And I feel like a lot of people were going through the same thing, which was painful for a card that you spent 1.5 million MT on and had to get all these garbage playoff records cards and had to lock them in just to not get Julius Erving. Rant over. I just wanted to talk about that for a second because that was like almost a breaking point for me within 2K. That just hurt, man. That was like the absolute worst. Then that Friday, we got NBA Finals packs. Personally, I do not like these packs. Professor Ludes is not a fan of these packs, personally. I don't know. I think a lot of people think these packs were a lot better. Some of these cards were good. Like Bosch was a good budget big man. Bruce Bowen was a great 3-and-D card. Byron Scott was one of the best budget point guards in this game, for sure. He couldn't play any defense, but he could stroke, dude. Bobby Jones was pretty good. Pau Gasol was, not very good. You know, Klay Thompson was super overrated. This is when we all learned that the Klay Thompson glitch that we all know and love is still definitely something that happens in this game. Klay Thompson was like 75 to 100K at this point, by the way. And then people realized quickly that, oh no, he's going to switch on to the center and guard the center every single time unless you go into your settings and start fixing it. LeBron James was, he was the best wing in this game, but he was definitely too expensive. Chubby Magic was awful. He had this trot animation where he wouldn't start running. He would like trot until you did a dribble move, which we'd see from Magic again. And we'd see from a lot of cards on current gen, and they never fixed it. Moses Malone, he was the best center in the game if you played a specific way. If you attack the rim with your center a lot, he was great. He played good defense. He set good screens. This card was really tight. I think I ran him and Bob Lanier at this stage. Yeah, because I had sold Kristaps. Chauncey Billups, all right, he doesn't get a lot of love at all, right? Chauncey was incredible. Chauncey was so good. He just had a slow jump shot. That's it. It was abysmally slow. I will concede. But he had 6 Hoff badges, 38 golds, 1 bronze. This is back in the stage where 2K would just add a single bronze for no reason. I don't know what that was all about. It was bronze range extender. I believe I upgraded him to gold range. And though his jump shot was slow, nobody expected Chauncey Billups to step out and hit that shot. And he did. Mr. Big Shot held it down. He was tight, dude. Then we got our 250K qualifier. First round, Saturday, October 10th. Did you guys expect it to go smoothly? Because it didn't. And it never does. So almost immediately, people realized that, oh, great, there's error codes. Okay. Which isn't a problem, except for the fact that if you have one loss, you can't continue to try to qualify because it's a one-loss rule. But that didn't even matter because most people couldn't even get into the game at this point. So only a select few amount of players were able to even connect to games. So you were seeing things like a dude named Elephant Dick 69 being the top of the PlayStation leaderboards. I think it might have been PlayStation or Xbox. But you were seeing just some random, like, almost looked like fake gamer tags being up there. That was crazy. They ended up just delaying it by like 2 hours and adding another hour onto it. The whole fiasco was an absolute nightmare. Not really something I'm too surprised about. I think I put circus music in the background of my video that I was doing at this point because it was just an absolute clown show. It was wild. Pretty much everyone got error coded. Season 2 began on October 16th. I'm not gonna lie, there was a lot of hype for Season 2, which makes sense. I was hyped about Season 2. The reward was revealed to be Blake Griffin, which anyone who's played 2K for a long period of time knows that early game Blake Griffins are always sick. Because at this point, no big men can kind of do everything, but Blake Griffin has always been able to do everything. Maybe not the best, but he's been able to do it. That's why him and Porzingis are always so hyped at the beginning of the year. Porzingis remains hyped because he's 7'2", but Blake Griffin, most people knew Blake Griffin was going to be good, right? I remember talking to a lot of people around this time, and everyone, general consensus was, okay, Blake's going to be fire. I have to grind for Blake, especially because at this point, we had all seen how annoying Steph Curry was. Yes, if you are wondering, the origin of the Curry slide is from specifically that pink diamond Curry. That's when people started to really figure it out. I think it really came from Park guys, though, personally, but Steph Curry obviously had it. So the rewards for this season were pretty good. Blake Griffin obviously was super sick. The agenda rewards were okay. Nothing really crazy with the agenda awards, I don't think. I think Duncan Robinson was in here somewhere, I believe. I'll talk about the actual rewards themselves in a second, but some clutch deluxe packs. We got to really see what the general template of seasons were going to be. Yes, my boy Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson was so tight. Jaren Jackson was actually pretty good too. But this is when we saw the format for the agendas, which honestly wouldn't change throughout the entirety of the year. And when I say format, I mean the actual prizing themselves. Nothing changed. I wish 2K would have shook it up a little bit. Maybe you put the Hoff badge back at 31, you put something else at 39. Who knows? Something. But at this point, we realized, okay, well, this is how it is now. This is how it's always going to be. It is eternal. Unfortunately, we were back to the old amount of XP from Season 1, which was unfortunate because it was a really, really big grind. And if you didn't spend all day, every day playing 2K, for the most part, you probably weren't going to get these early reward cards. Later on, when it came to some of those rewards, I believe specifically David Robinson and beyond, it became a lot more manageable to get the reward cards. But this season, that was not the case. We got some new season tip-off packs. I personally wish they would have kept doing season tip-off packs. I liked them. I thought they were cool. Would have been sweet to see them keep doing it throughout the year. So I'm not really sure why they stopped. I'm guessing they just had like too many promos they needed to get out. We got some more exchanges as well. Kind of thought after the first season that they were going to like tame the amount of things you needed to exchange to get the player. And then we found out, no, no, it's just as ridiculous. They lowered it by a little bit. You basically needed the same amount of things, but the original owner concept, I didn't really get to touch on earlier because it hasn't really come into play as of yet as far as being like detrimental to the game. It's kind of stupid. There's been some agenda stuff with it. The exchange, unfortunately, has to do with original owner cards, but nothing really happened with it at this stage. Later on, though, you'll see 2K use that original owner concept against a player base, but that will be in another video because they don't do it yet, but they will. You know 2K. If there's something in the game that they can use to monetize its player base and weaponize it, they will. So, Season 2's players, JJ Redick was actually pretty good, especially for a 3-token reward. Rui Hachimura was good. Ben Mclemore. If anybody watched my channel around then, you guys know how I feel about Emerald Ben Mclemore. Kind of how like LeBron felt about him when he said he was the best player in the draft. Ben McLemore was sick. Darko Milicic was not good. These three guys were decent. George Hill, Dennis Smith Jr., Markelle Fultz, all of them pretty good. Duncan Robinson was a GOAT for limited. Same with Daniel Gibson. When you needed to use Sapphire or below players, this is when we started to realize that like 2K was going to put some overpowered lower gem cards in the agenda. Karl Anthony Towns was pretty good. He was relatively cheap to exchange for as well. Bradley Beal was okay. James Harden and Buddy Hield were like way too expensive. Jay Williams was like decent enough if you needed like a fast little point guard. He was like Derrick Rose adjacent. That was the only Jay Williams we got all year. That's wild, dude. That's stupid. Jaren Jackson, like I said, he's pretty decent. Danny Manning, Brent Berry, both of those guys were very disappointing. They just didn't give Brent Berry even like bronze range extender. Just like that's Brent Berry's whole deal. Bargnani and Rafe LaFrentz, though. These guys were great. I believe I ran Rafe LaFrentz at power forward and Bargnani at center, which is like super toxic. Twin towers, for sure. I was going to say twin tower white guys, but I don't really know what's up with his name is Rafe. His last name is LaFrentz. This guy's definitely white. Andrea Bargnani he's like, is he from Spain? I don't even remember. I know nothing about Andrea Bargnani as a person at this point. But these cards were actually game-changing, like legitimately, because they gave your average run-of-the-mill player, one that just doesn't have a bunch of MTs stacked up, a relatively budget big man that can stretch the floor. And this is when we really saw 5-out cheesing pretty go kind of mainstream, for lack of a better term. Karl Anthony Towns was also pretty decent, but he was like way too expensive. They did my boy Darius Miles super dirty. First off, he's a mid-2000s combo forward, and he's wearing a headband. The least you can do is give him a couple shooting badges, 2K, the audacity. But his jump shot was good. Brook Lopez base was pretty solid. Shea was okay. CJ McCollum was expensive to exchange for, but he was whatever. Daryl, Dr. Duncanstein, Griffith was pretty tight. Chuck Pearson, Victor Oladipo, Larry Johnson, they're all decent. Pete Maravich and James Worthy were two of the best cards in the game at this point. Pete Maravich was really nice. He had that Ray Allen base, but he had a bunch of arc to the jump shot, so it caused a lot of whites to obviously not go in. That kind of was the first clue to me that uppers really affected a jump shot this year specifically. I know I'm talking about weird stuff like that, but this is just stuff I noticed throughout the year that I wanted to touch on because I watched a few documentaries and people don't really touch on the weird like animation aspects of the actual game itself. So I wanted to talk about it. Patrick Ewing was meh. Bob Love was pretty decent. David Thompson was whatever. Jaylen Brown ended up being pretty good, but he was outclassed by the time most people even got him anyway. Still usable though. Then on the 19th, we actually got our first LTE event. Look, this was a triple threat offline event. Not the greatest thing in the world. But my boy Sharif Abdul-Rahim, who didn't get another card for the rest of the year. God, 2K. The audacity. Still good for free cards. Then on that Tuesday, we got the Dunkers set. Look, Nate Robinson was Spotlight reward, I think. Spud Webb, Larry Cannon, Desmond Mason, not that good. Isaiah Ryder dunked on literally everybody. Josh Smith, John Wall, two of the best cards in the game. Look, I do regret locking this set in because I didn't even go for J.R. Smith at all, but I don't really regret it for the John Wall stuff. John Wall and Josh Smith held it down. Josh Smith for sure was one of the best power forwards in the game at this stage. John Wall was just, I personally don't think he was really better than Stockton, but he was just unstoppable at attacking the rim at this point. Like, literally, if he was driving to the rim and you were holding turbo, and just press X, he would score almost every single time. This man had just the ungodly ability to initiate contact dunks. Also, he had every dunking badge in the game. Josh Smith, super sick as well. He could boom on everybody, but I'll talk about him in a second. Look, John Wall couldn't shoot. So that kept his price relatively low. I mean, don't get it twisted. He could still hit a good jump shot. John Wall base was pretty good, even early on this year. But he was still like 300, 400K. He was, I would say, the most annoying point guard to come across at this stage in the game because he would just boom on everybody. There's another guy that we'd see that I think like 95% of the player base was able to get a hold of in Season 3 who would turn the game into a wasteland. Josh Smith, I don't think people realized how good Josh Smith was actually going to be. Like, this dude was crazy. He was wet from the corners. He could handle the ball. That was the key. We didn't really have too many kind of forward wings like him that could handle the rock like that could kind of do everything, that could play defense. He was better LeBron. Literally. Like, that's what he was. He was better LeBron James. And although he didn't stay better LeBron James, he stayed competent LeBron James type player for the entirety of 2K21. Not just specifically this card, but Josh Smith in general. Very LeBron-like. Then we got this on Monday. They just added this Boozer card into the promo packs that you got for pre-ordering. Whatever. Then on Friday, we got, was that on Monday? Nah, I don't remember. I think it was on like Wednesday or something. We got Flash. This set, it was pretty good. The rest of the cards were decent. Like Andre Karolinko was not very good, which was a bummer because when we saw the set initially, I was hyped on Andre Karolinko. I was like, yes. Robert Pack was okay. Daryl Dawkins sucked. Richie Guerin was fire. Richie Guerin was sick. He had that Larry Cannon Dikembe jump shot. He was like the best budget sharpshooting point guard that you could buy because he was like $5K. Richie Guerin was tight. We didn't get another Richie Guerin all year either. Not even in the TTO vault. Oscar Robertson was not bad, but he couldn't get any defensive badges. Gilbert Arenas was whatever, but Tim Duncan. Look, I knew the glitch Tim Duncan was going to be pretty good at this stage, but I didn't realize how good he was going to be. I didn't realize he was going to be the best center in the game good. Was he the best center for that long? Debatable. I mean, he was up there for a while. But this card, man. Tim Duncan's release in hindsight isn't the greatest, but it is relatively easy to green. And although it's slow, it's very consistent. I would liken it to like Scottie Pippen's jump shot or that Brian Russell jump shot. But this card was so good, man. I had this card, and not only was he one of the best rebounders in the game at the time, yeah, he couldn't handle the ball at all, but like we really didn't have, the only stretch big options we had was Kristaps. He was inconsistent. Karl Anthony Towns didn't have really the right badges, so he was inconsistent. Bargnani was good, but he wasn't good on the defensive end. Rafe LaFrentz was decent, but he couldn't have range extender, and he really wasn't the best interior defender either. But then we got Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan not only was an incredible interior defender, not only could he play in the post, but he could also step out and hit wide open corner threes and top of the key threes at a high clip if you got his jump shot down. He was the true beginning of 5-out. No question about it. Like, this dude, him and Josh Smith was a dynamic duo. Not really in real life, but in my head that I ran for a while. Goats. Then we got what the worst Tuesday pack, at least at this point, that we had seen. Oh, international packs. These packs were absolutely terrible. Wiggins and Ricky Rubio were pretty decent. Ilgauskas was just like super slow and played no defense. Tony Parker was just small and they didn't give him like range or anything. Peja was easily the worst pink diamond, bar none. Like, people say that Manu was bad, and I will kindly disagree with them. Peja, on the other hand, was atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. Set shot 4, terrible. Deadlift shrimp was actually pretty decent. Then we got an update to TT Offline, Buck Williams. He was like better Bill Russell from the Spotlight Sims the first season. Altogether pretty good. Not really that great, but he could at least attack the rim and play defense. Shout out to Buck Williams. We didn't get another one of him either. Then we got another update for Triple Threat Online. Charlie Ward was pretty good. Katino Mobley was decent. Ronnie Cycli. These limited time events were sick, dude. I wish they would have done more of them. DJ Ronnie Cycli in the mix. Halloween. And the Possessed Pack controversy. So, if you weren't around the game at this point, it's a fun one. So, I mean, we saw the cards on the database on Friday, which, you know, cool. Whatever. They look good. Obviously, there was a pink diamond T-Max, so your boy was intrigued. There was also a Ruby Dino Raja and Thurl Bailey. This set looked incredible. Also, they put Otis Birdsong into limited, and Otis Birdsong was the really... He gets kind of forgotten about when people talk about 2K21 My Team, but really he was the first like overpowered free card, because this card was incredible. Otis Birdsong himself was better than any of the cards in the Possessed set. I'm being completely serious. He really was. If you were lucky enough to get that card. And I think Mike Miller was on TT Offline, and then Murasan was on TT Online. Butler and Donovan Mitchell were okay. Thurl and Raja were decent. Emerald Jeff Green was great. Kawhi was Kawhi, so he was overrated, but he wasn't that good. David West and Amari were okay. T-Mac was T-Mac. You really thought he was going to be tight, but he could hold like basically no defensive badges for some reason. And he had this weird hitch in his dribble where he would start trotting like that Magic Johnson. Also, they gave him Gold Steady Shooter, and he couldn't get like Hot Zone Hunter or Green Machine or Flexible or like any of those badges for some reason. I don't know. I was disappointed with this Tracy McGrady personally, but at the same time, at this game, for them not to blow power balancing, I was honestly kind of impressed. Though it was only Halloween, so I guess my expectations were a little tempered. But Dave Cowens, dude. Dave Cowens was so tight. Was he worth locking in all that MT? Probably not. Definitely not. 100% not. But man, was he nice. Like, literally, he was so good. I used to run him and Josh Smith. And then sometimes I would run him and Tim Duncan together, which was a formidable front court. Can't believe the only other Dave Cowens we got was, wow, the TT Spotlight one. Crazy. Now, deluxe packs are when we first got really a lot of people got introduced to the deluxe pack kind of issues. I'm trying to say that as nicely as possible. Look, realistically, people realize how trash deluxe packs were at this point. Like, we had deluxe packs in the past with NBA Finals and Clutch. I think it was possessed packs that really opened people's eyes to how bad the deluxe packs were at this point. I believe it was something like, what was the percentage to get above a diamond? Like 4% at this point? I think so. I think to get a 92 or above was a 4%. Obviously, I'm hyped. I pulled Tracy McGrady. He ended up not being that good. But at the time, I was super hyped. If you watch that video in particular, which I don't remember if it's private or not, I got a little excited. I got a little stoked. But these packs overall were horrendous. Like, I got lucky with that T-Mac, but other than that, like, the pulls were not good. A lot of people really realized how bad deluxe packs were and opted to go open the non-deluxe versions because they were cheaper and it felt like you had the same chance. Then 2K spent the entirety of the day kind of teasing something. We weren't really sure what they were teasing. They just said something big was happening at midnight, right? And we're like, okay, something big. What are they going to put into the game? You know, we're thinking maybe it's a locker code. Maybe it's like a limited time event for the next day. No. Are limited time cards that are only available in possessed packs for 8 hours. And then if you get all 3 of them, you get 3 of the best Hoff badges in the game at this stage. So, Vince Carter, LeBron James, and James Harden were only in packs individually for 8 hours at a time. So, the other thing I want to talk about, though, is for all 3 of those cards, for the first 30 minutes that the packs or the cards themselves were live, they were not in the packs. So James Harden, for the first 30 minutes that that event began, James Harden was not in the packs. And the reason I know that is because nobody had him. So that was crazy. Talking to 2K customer support again, they basically told me to just like eat a bag of dicks, which was tight. That was fun. These cards were the most expensive cards in the game, period, and they were the most expensive cards that we had seen thus far, because most people had a big storage of MT, because there was really nothing worth buying at this point. But 2K decided they were going to drain that MT. Look, there's 3 James Hardens. 3. I'm recording this video the day after these packs, and there's 3 of them. I did have one of them. It sold for quite a bit of MT. I think I had it on auction at this point, so there was technically 4 James Hardens, but like literally James Harden was going for like 800K. I think LeBron was going for like some astronomical amount. Can't remember if I searched him. Vince Carter was actually, people kind of sleep on Vince Carter for the most part. I don't know why, but people got the most mad at 2K for James Harden and LeBron James. But like Vince Carter was actually the best card out of these 3. Yeah, LeBron James was going for like 1 million MT. It was crazy. I didn't even think people had 1 million MT at this point. But they did to spend on this LeBron. By the way, he really wasn't that much better than the Diamond Finals LeBron that we got earlier. Yes, he was better. He was a little bit better of a shooter. He had better badge count to a certain extent, but the price to upgrade was absolutely not worth it. For like literally, I think it would have cost you like 900 to a million MT for this LeBron if you already had the Diamond one. You could have spent 200K and badged him out almost to this degree, basically to this degree, and then put some shoes on him and stuff. He was a better perimeter defender though, and he was a wee bit faster with a better speed with ball. So there were some reasons to upgrade, but for the majority of players, it definitely wasn't worth the upgrade cost. That's my personal opinion on it. I said it at the time, I'll say it again, especially with hindsight involved, definitely not worth it. They couldn't even be bothered to upgrade his tendencies, which like his tendencies were good anyway, but that's besides the point. So as you can see, the badge count isn't incredibly different. They did give him additional badges, which, was helpful, and then I believe they boosted up like flexible and stuff like that, but he had Hoff difficult shots, which was definitely cool. I really don't think I ran into this card very often, though. Like, let me know down in the comments if you ran into this card. I really don't remember running into this LeBron very much. I would say he is one of the, at least at this point, one of the rarest cards we've ever seen in 2K. He wasn't really a gatekeeper for anything, too, but I don't remember running into this card really ever. I ran into Vince more than I ran into LeBron. Like, I think I ran into Vince in the qualifiers, like a couple weeks later, like twice somehow. And then through various like TTO and Unlimited games, I would run into Vince all the time. For my money, Vince Carter was the best out of these three. I feel like that is another thing that gets lost in history, which is why I wanted to make this documentary in the first place. I feel like people kind of wash over certain aspects of this game and certain cards and how good they actually were. And Vince Carter is one of those cards. He was, bar none, the best and most complete shooting guard in this game at the time of the Possessed packs releasing. There was not a wing as good as Vince Carter. It's just not a thing. That card was so fake. Remember when I was talking about John Wall and how he just contact dunked over everybody? Yeah, Vince Carter also did that. James Harden, he was okay. You just couldn't really give him any defensive badges. But offensively, he was lethal. For sure. Like, he was a lethal offensive threat. He pretty much made like everything he shot. He could attack the rim. Like I said, decent. Vince Carter, without a doubt, the best wing in the game, though. Definitely the best shooting guard. Yeah, he only had silver range. It didn't matter. He's literally as good as like cards we're going to see coming out in the next like month. Like, Vince Carter was stupid. There's a reason he was 700K. And there's a reason he was pretty much the rarest out of these three as the year went on. This card was dumb, dude. This LeBron was obviously good. LeBron was good at this stage, but I don't think he was really that great. I don't think he was better than Vince Carter. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that Vince Carter is the superior card. Cheers to Vince Carter. I'm going on like this whole Vince Carter rant. I had Vince Carter. He was sick. He restored my faith in humanity after how bad Pink Diamond T-Mac was. So I think that's probably why I hold him in such a special place in my heart. Shout out to you, Vince Carter. T-Mac will always be the better cousin, though. I hope you know that. I don't care if your career was longer. Boo. Doesn't matter. Anyways, these cards super overrated. And the people who locked him in were A, the richest people, and B, they now had 3 of the best Hoff badges in the game. Super not tight. Then on Tuesday, we got team-up packs. I mean, Ray Allen was really good. Caron Butler was okay. That Chris Paul was actually decent. It's like the first time I've used Chris Paul in 2K in at least a couple years where he was like decent. Tyreek Evans got put onto TTO. He was really solid. Marcus Camby, crazy bug eyes. He was decent, I guess. Ray Allen was really good. He was actually one of the better 2 guards in this game too. Ray Allen base is great. Once again, he had gold steady, which I don't know why 2K kept doing this, but they just kept insisting on doing it. Whatever. He had gold deadeye, gold range. He had silver clamps, non-upgradable, but still fine. Ray Allen was one of the better 2 guards for a while, actually. And he was good, man. Then on Friday, we got Idles Grant Hill. Idles Grant Hill was pretty okay. I mean, the rest of this set was not very good. Steve Francis was decent. Glenn Rice was okay. Drazen was a okay shooter, but he wasn't really that great. Grant Hill, on the other hand, was sick. I still personally believe that Vince Carter was the superior guard/wing to Grant Hill, but Grant Hill was immeasurably cheaper. Like, he was significantly cheaper. Oh, look at me from 1 year ago. That's me in the corner. Yeah, he was way better. Grant Hill was sick, though. He pretty much, at least as far as the comp guys went, pretty much everybody ran Grant Hill. Grant Hill was awful last year, so it was nice to see 2K show him some love, even though I hate Duke and wish the worst upon Duke players for the majority of my life. And I don't particularly like Grant Hill too much. He's still cooler than Reggie Miller, though. Reggie Miller's so puss. Anyways, still an incredibly good card, though. Great badge count. He had Hoff Showtime. That's why everyone loved him so much, for being honest. You could get team takeover so easily if you had Hoff Showtime and Showtime dunks. I think that's why a lot of people watch my channels, because I don't talk about these things as much. I just feel like every channel on YouTube talks about the same, 3 badges. So I try not to do that, and I've always tried not to do that. But yeah, Grant Hill was nasty with it. Other than that, though, the rest of the set, not very good. Drummond was good for rebounding challenges. I don't know how helpful that is, but he was good for rebounding challenges. Drazen was a good sniper card. Steve Francis was a good budget point guard, but I can't even say for certain if he was that much better than Richie Guerin. Richie Guerin might still be a little better than him. Yeah, Richie Guerin was pretty tight. Steve Francis could boom, though. I mean, this set overall, I know there was a narrative later in the year that no one cared about idols, but I feel like this set specifically, that was pretty accurate, for sure. I don't think anyone cared about this one. So then we got LTE cards. Chris Mullin. This card is where I for sure found out about jump shot arc. Because I remember playing against this card, and legitimately, dude would shoot lasers at the hoop, and he would make so many whites that it would actually make me mad, right? And I was like, okay, what is going on? Why does this Chris Mullin card make every jump shot he takes, regardless if it's a green or a white? Because he has base 22 and a good upper. So that is the moment, at least for me personally, that it clicked in my brain that A, base 22 on current gen is one of the best jump shots in the game as far as making whites, so if you're not that green. And B, the less arc a jump shot has, the more whites it's going to make. Which is why Jonathan Isaac and Larry Bird base miss a lot of whites. Then Next Gen released. Now, I don't have a whole lot to say about Next Gen because I was on current gen for a long period of time, and this was the 10th of November. Also, Pink Diamond Blake Griffin started getting attained by people too, but the reason I wanted to bring up Next Gen is because it did split the player base, although not 50-50 or anything, probably 80-20, 20% of the player base went on to Next Gen. It did affect the game and it affected matchmaking to a certain degree, so I wanted to mention it. Then we got Loyalty. This set wasn't very good. I mean, the Ruby Steph was cool. It's just the first time 2K was giving us lower overall versions of star players so people could afford them. Whatever, he was decent. I mean, he wasn't really that much better than the current series stuff, but he was a little bit better at least. David Robinson and Damian Lillard were pretty decent. This is not the Hondo you know. This is Havlicek with a different jump shot. They juiced him with base 98 before. Sam Jones was mad. Nobody locked in for him. But Big Blake. People got Big Blake. And I don't think we were really ready for this card specifically, though. I don't think we were. Tim Duncan kind of introduced a wave. I mean, it's not like 5 out was a really inventive new strategy or anything, but Tim Duncan kind of made it more possible for a few people. Blake Griffin changed the game completely. Blake Griffin himself turned the game into what you know it is today, or know it as today. Specifically 2K21 My Team. because now people were able to ball handle with their big man. And Blake Griffin was ridiculous. He could do literally everything. Any role that you needed Blake Griffin to fill, he could fill it. You need him to be a spot-up jump shooter? Yeah, for sure. You need him to attack the rim? Yup, he's got that. You want him to get rebounds, sit in the corner? Absolutely. Putbacks? Got it. Oh, you want him to be your main ball handler? Yup, he could do that too. Blake Griffin was ridiculous. Literally my favorite card this entire year. He was so stupid. He was still usable for like months after this. So good. Then we got more content. We got Flash. This set was tight, dude. First off, we got Kyle Korver and Nick Anderson. Two of the most beloved Ruby cards in this entire game. Tom Gugliotta was sick. First off, he has 2 barbed wire tattoos. I don't know if you knew that. Super tight. DeMar DeRozan couldn't shoot, but he was a pretty good like budget wing because of that. We got Monte Ellis, who was basically Steph Curry bucket dunk. That was tight. Kevin Garnett, great defender. But we also got Zion, dude. And I'll talk about Zion a little bit more. Zion was no question the best wing on current gen. Now, I found out later that he was atrocious on next gen with one of the worst jump shots in the game. But at the time, on current gen, he was nigh unstoppable. Nick Anderson was the best budget card in this game at the point. Like, no joke. Like, Nick Anderson was so incredibly good. For a wing to have, like, gold range, gold catch and shoot, gold corner, and still have, like, some little bit of, like, clamps and stuff. Hey, don't make fun of me for stuttering. You know how hard it is to talk for an hour and 20 minutes straight by yourself in a room? It's pretty difficult, dog. Anyways, Nick Anderson was a beast, but Zion was the real headliner of this set. I personally was most excited about Monte Ellis. As you guys know, I'm an unapologetic Monte Ellis stan, who, you know, I've finally given up the fact that Golden State was better off trading Monte Ellis. I, at the time, thought they should have traded Stephen Curry, so you could see where my mind is at exactly. But Zion was ridiculous. Like, literally, he was just 6'6" Blake Griffin. If you had him and Blake Griffin, you were pretty much golden on current gen. He was faster than pretty much all the other wings. He had base 29, which was the best jump shot on current gen at that point. He had pretty much every badge that you would want him to have. Even at 6'6", you could play him at point guard or at power forward. It didn't matter. Like, he was that much better than every other card in the game at that point, besides Big Blake. But even then, Big Blake was never a great defender in the first place. So if you had Zion and Blake Griffin, man. Also, he had half showtime, so he just boomed on everyone and gave your entire team takeover and made your team cold every time. Oh, and if you wanted to leave him outside, yeah, he could hit jumpers for days. Like, it didn't matter. Look at young me, looking like a tennis star or looking like a Catholic schoolgirl. I'm not really sure how I look in this picture. I don't know what my hair was doing. I'm not really sure. Why was I wearing a headband with my hair like that? I don't know, dude. I was vibing that day. This day in history, 2K21. I was vibing, dude. It's fine. This card was so expensive. I want to say for at least the first couple weeks, Zion was around 400 or 500K on Xbox, and he didn't really drop below 200K until season 3, like mid-season 3. He didn't drop below 100K for a long period of time. But the one thing that did keep his price down a little bit was the fact that look at how awful this jump shot is. This is me over on next gen currently right now. Look at how gross this jumper is. Those of you on current gen are retching in horror because you're like, wait, what? Zion has the smoothest jump shot in the game. Yeah, not on next gen. For whatever reason, they gave him this jump shot on next gen, this upper. It is atrocious. He literally looks like one of your friends that comes and hooks at Peak Fitness. Like, that is never invited. He just shows up. He's just like not very good. He chucks with his full body weight. He's just not good, dude. I don't know what they did to his jumper. Just atrocious. Then we got draft packs. They got teased and leaked the night before by 2K. I think this was the first instance of them really leaking stuff by themselves. I have air quotes up. This was on the 18th of November. Because other leaks had happened before this. This is the first time that they were just like, nah, we're just going to put it out on our official Twitter. At least that I can remember. And the day the cards came out, we were all kind of confused, but also kind of stoked. I mean, Ben Simmons, people were excited about that, but he couldn't shoot, so no one really cared. Glenn Robinson ended up being a lot better than people realized. People were hyped on Luka and Anthony Davis. And, of course, people were hyped about Cam Reddish. Look, me personally, Brandon Ingram is one of the most underrated cards this year in 2K21 My Team. He was so good. He did take some badge additions to get up to the level that you needed him to get at. But this card got no love at the time. Brandon Ingram, for whatever reason, just still kind of doesn't get love in 2K. I don't know what it is. Like, he's just like smaller Jonathan Isaac. They're basically the exact same. But Cam Reddish was the card on everyone's mind. Everyone was like, how do we get Cam Reddish? You know, the general initial thought was, okay, we have to lock in Ben Simmons, Glenn Robinson, the top 5 cards, and then we get Cam Reddish. Nobody really knew what the Emeralds were, or what they were for specifically. A lot of people thought they were going to be grindable, or they were going to be something. Little did we know what they actually were, which was deluxe packs, and I would say 97% of them included a Emerald rookie. To get Cam Reddish, you not only had to get every single rookie in the set, which is what we all thought might be the case. No, you also had to Evo all of them. Now, look, most people know about the Cam Reddish glitch at this point, but some guy on Twitch figured out that you can sell your fully Evo'd players after you lock in Cam Reddish and swap them out with lower overall versions. Now, the reason this is in the game in the first place is because 2K had to put kind of an exit strategy for original owner stuff. So that way, if you had a badged up not original owner card and you needed an original owner one, you could throw that one in the auctions and put the original owner back in your collection. So, or something of that nature. That's why it's in the game in the first place, by the way. If you guys didn't know that, that's what it is. Now, what they didn't count on was that people were going to do that to cheese lock-ins in this way, which is why you didn't see any type of lock-in like this after this specifically. This was the last time you saw this kind of lock-in, thankfully, because the actual, like, first off, you were trying to buy the cards to do this, and you couldn't, like, sell them afterwards. It would have cost an astronomical amount. If you just waited like 3 days, you could get all the cards for like 100K and then sell them back and you'd lose like 30K. But like, if this was worked the way it originally was intended to work, this would have been such a long and arduous process, dude. This would have sucked so bad. These are such laborious grinds. Like, these Evos are horrendous, dude. Look, you think that get one dunk is going to be easy, but then Patrick Williams just doesn't dunk. Shout out to everybody who remembered the Larry Hughes Evo card from 2K20, where he just wouldn't dunk. You had to get one dunk, and he wouldn't dunk. Sorry, I just want to talk about Larry Hughes again. He really drove me nuts. Isaac Okoro. But then, once you did it, regardless how you did it, you got Cam Reddish. And Cam Reddish was, for sure, one of the best wings in the game. And you could pick him up feasibly for around 40K, which is significantly cheaper. I mean, think about the other good wings in the game. Grant Hill was going for 400K at this point. Vince Carter was like 700K. But every player in the game had Cam Reddish. Literally, everyone had him because he was so easy to get, so cheap, and so good. And shout out to 2K for that, even though they didn't mean to do that. Shout out to that guy who figured it out, too. You're a troop. Then we got the second day of qualifiers. I mean, nothing really crazy happened on the 16th. Some of these guys went on to have like pretty good 250K tournaments. I don't really know too much about any of these guys, so I'm not going to like talk about them in detail. I don't remember any controversy, just a lot more error codes. More error codes, people getting error coded out, not qualifying due to error codes, stuff like that. Nothing crazy, though. I'm not going to talk about it too in depth. Then we got the sleeper set to round out Season 2. Honestly, the sleeper set kind of sucked. Paul Millsap was fun. I will stand firm on my respect and admiration for this Paul Millsap card. He was sick. Isaiah Thomas wasn't good. DeAndre Jordan was a good shot blocker. Jokic was actually pretty good. He didn't really get a lot of love at the time, but he was literally one of the best centers in the game. People will argue with me on that one, but him and the glitch Jokic, we'll see later, were literally two of the best centers in the game that never got the love that they deserved. It's crazy. Chris Middleton was okay. Michael Redd was okay. Rafer Alston was dope, dude. I think I finally sold Darren Williams at this point because I had Rafer Alston. I think when I got Rafer Alston, I was like, okay, I'm finally selling Darren Williams. By the way, at this point, Darren Williams was still at like 80, 90K. He might even have been more. I can't remember exactly. I have to go look at my market videos. But he was still above 70K at this point. It had been like a month and a half, 2 months since he came out. Like, that's how good Darren Williams was. And I think I finally sold him to use Rafer Alston because Rafer Alston was essentially a taller Allen Iverson. J.R. Smith was pretty good too. People that had him, he was super fake. He had Hall of Fame range, especially if you were over on Next Gen, that allowed him to shoot literally from like half court, which they have never fixed on Next Gen, but it used to be a lot worse. People used to just literally range from half court. But either way, fitting end to season 2. Not really that interesting, but definitely full of interesting events. I don't know. Next episode on the My Team documentary series. Like, I intended to make this one single video, but it ended up being 4 hours before I even got to season 6. So now it's a series. Deal with it. We're going to be talking about season 3 and 4, the season of giving, and season 4 next is now. And the 250K tournament will begin, in addition to the My Team Festival, which is horrendous. Thank you so much for watching the video. I appreciate it. If you made it this far, I appreciate you so much. Look, I even made credits. I made credits, guys. Look at how much I tried. Look at how hard I tried. Watch my credits. I appreciate every single one of you guys. Thank you so much. Drop a like on this video, please. Peace out, guys. I'll be back with the next one. Mwah.